The NBA playoffs start the second week of April, with the NHL playoffs scheduled to begin immediately after. Whether you're looking to raise the Stanley Cup or lift the Larry O'Brien Trophy, we've got the deal for you. Postseason subscriptions are already a great deal at $219, but with this early bird special, we're slashing it even more to just $177 each, and you get the rest of the regular season for free. Between now and Sunday, April 9th, partner with your favorite NBA or NHL handicapper and get their NHL or NBA best bets all the way through the finals. No coupon is needed. Head to the homepage of your favorite WagerTalk or SportsMemo expert and finish the NBA and NHL postseason with a bang.
Welcome into WagerTalk's Last Call. I'm Meghan Payton. Happy Saturday. Tons going on in the world of sports. We have the Masters. Tiger Woods makes the cut. MLB, full slate of games. NBA regular season is starting to wrap up. We have NHL playoffs almost on the horizon. We're going to break it down with some of the best handicappers in the whole area. We have Moneyline Matt, Tony Mejia, Carmine Bianco, here to talk everything in all sports. Now, reminder, if you're new here to WagerTalk's Last Call, this show is all about you. It's all about the YouTube live comments and the questions that you have and last minute bets as we get into our Saturday slate. So forget about me. I'm just going to navigate the questions, head over to the live chat and start to think, what kind of bets do you want to make today? What kind of questions do you want to ask our handicappers? We're covering all sports. And we're going to start with NHL expert Carmine Bianco. Carmine, thank you very much for joining us here at Last Call Saturday morning. You have had a fantastic NHL season, 324, 234 NHL since November 1st. I hear you have a 5% play up and a playoff package that we should be looking at for the NHL.
Yeah, it's been a good season. We're winding down. I think the regular NHL regular season comes to an end on Thursday with a couple games on Thursday, and then a few days off, and we're into the playoffs. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's been a very good 2023, and even going back to November, 5% plays have gone extremely well. 11-4 with the NHL 5% plays, and one up for today in a spot that I think is a good one. So we'll see how that goes. But I think the game we're going to discuss today, Megan, is a game that I am actually going to with my Puck Time co-host. He flew in from Nova Scotia and or Halifax, and with a friend of his. And there's four of us going to the Toronto Maple Leafs Montreal Canadiens game tonight.
Yeah, Andrew McInnes, Carmine Bianco, two of the best NHL cappers in the game. They're going to be at the Maple Leafs game tonight. Puck drop at 7:05 Eastern, and Carmine's going to break this one down for us. We have Montreal at Toronto. Toronto minus 375 on the money line. Total at 6.5. The Leafs are locked into that second seed, so not as much to play for here. Montreal wants to win. At the end of the day, this still is a regular season rivalry. I know that you're going to be eyeing this one from a total side and maybe some player props. So where should we be looking for this one out in Toronto?
Yeah, these ones are always good games, even if sometimes they're slanted score lines, because obviously the Toronto Maple Leafs have been the better of the two teams over the last few years. Although the Montreal Canadiens in their run to the Stanley Cup 3-4 years ago did come back from 3-1 down in the series to knock off the Leafs. But as you said, this is a game with little at play. Toronto's locked into the 2 seed. They'll host Tampa Bay in the first round of the playoffs. Montreal, their season has been long over for that team, a long list of injuries. And they're pretty much on the outside of the top 4 spots as far as bottom 4 spots to get a bigger chance at winning the draft lottery this year, which is which will be a generational talent in Connor Bedard. He's absolutely phenomenal. Whatever team gets him, he's going to transform them pretty much right away. But when you look at this game here, it's a final home game for the Leafs. And we're seeing, much like the NBA, we're seeing a lot of NHL teams that are pretty much locked into their spots or out of the playoffs, resting some players. But I don't expect that to happen here. Number one, Montreal has a long list of injuries, as I mentioned. So the guys you see on their team who played who've been playing the last few weeks are who will be in the lineup tonight. And for Toronto, in a game where you would think possibly um, they could rest guys like Austin Matthews, John Tavares, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, but they're not going to. By all by all intents and purposes, because this is their last home game, and then they'll go on the road to finish their final three of the season, and that's likely where you're going to see a majority of their players, at least their stars, sitting at least two of those three games to get them rested for the first round of the playoffs. A couple other things that are at play here is as we get into these games, you see more open ice. Leafs are coming off a game in Boston on Thursday, and that was more of a playoff feel. Boston and Toronto have a rivalry. Neither team was going to rest players in that game, and it was a 2-1 final for Boston in that one. Playoff hockey, much more open ice tonight. And even with the Montreal team that's been struggling to score goals up until recently on Thursday, in a game that will mimic this one, I think. It was open ice the whole game. Montreal scores 6 goals, 5 of the goals from different players in that one, and that game finishes 6-2 over the Washington Capitals, and they ended Washington's season, although their playoff hopes were faint, if nothing else. I expect an open game in this one, and the total at 6.5, which it should be for these two teams when they face off. And the juice is about 120. It's gone up to about 125 and seen some 130s crop up. But I'm expecting goals tonight, and I'm going to be at the game, so I would love to see some goals tonight. And I've got some player props if you guys want to hear them as well.
Let's talk player props. Carmine says take the over 6.5 goals, minus 120. I believe you can get that right now. I'm seeing minus 120 on FanDuel Sportsbook. Let's talk player props, Carmine. What should we be looking at in this one?
So with the idea that Toronto will likely rest in their final 3 games, which are all road games, some players, and their final 3 road games this season will be at Florida, at Florida, at Tampa Bay, which will be a preview of the next of the first round of the playoffs, and you might see him in that game. And then they finish off with a game against the New York Rangers. So 3 very tough games, and I expect players to sit out 2 of them. What comes into play is always the not so much the shots on goal props, but it's correlated to goal scoring. And you have Austin Matthews on 38 goals in his contract. He has, for hitting certain milestones, 40 goals, 50 goals, even 60, I think, as he did last season. And Mitch Marner, who's on 28 goals. And there's contract bonuses for 30 goals, 40 goals. He's not going to hit 40, but he has a very good chance of hitting 30. So I expect to see Matthews and Marner getting a lot of ice time, getting some shots on goal, and hopefully scoring. So with that said, Austin Matthews, he's currently on 38 goals. His shot total is normally at 4.5, and that's what it's at here, minus 130. He's gone over this number 6 of his last 7 games played, including an unbelievable 15 shots on goal against Carolina. So with him pursuing those 40 goals, I could see him getting over that 4.5 in this Montreal game. And then at certain books, you can get not only a player to score, but the better odds, because Austin Matthews is about 170 to score a goal tonight. You can get 2 or more goals, and he's plus 280 to get 2 or more goals tonight. And I can see that happening, obviously, on 38. And then Mitch Marner, I expect shots on goal from him. So his shots on goal are over 2.5, minus 135. So there's 3 props that I am playing. So I would suggest you take them as well, too. Austin Matthews, over 4.5 shots, minus 130. Matthews scored 2 or more goals. And Mitch Marner, over 2.5 shots on goal, minus 135.
Carm, as we're talking overs, how about a big over, the Grand Salami at 102 in NHL? Are we taking over or under for these total goals?
I would take over the Grand Salami. I think the other night it was at 90 and a half, and they finished with, I think, 94 or 95. And there's just not a lot of games here when you're looking at them. And I think there's 12, I think it's 12 games or 14 games. There's just not a lot of games in which you expect low scoring games, even the ones with low totals like 5.5 on the Islanders and the Flyers. I expect to see some goals there. I expect to see the Islanders, who are looking, if they win out, they will make it into the playoffs. They're going to continue to score and hopefully continue to score here. And even games like the only game in which I expect to be a low scoring game is probably the Nashville Winnipeg game, because that is a 4-point game in the sense of Winnipeg has a playoff spot. Nashville is just behind them, and Calgary is right there too. So I expect a lower scoring game too. But there's a lot of games where I envision open ice. Pittsburgh and Detroit. They played less than 2 weeks ago, finished 7-4 in that game in Detroit, and they're right back in Detroit again as well too. There's a lot of early games. So if you're playing that grand salami play, you've got to get it in within the next 70 minutes or so, because the first game, Carolina in Buffalo, goes off at 12:37. But I can see some big score lines tonight. And normally all you need, Megan, are 3 or 4 games where they just become sort of, I like to use the phrase pond hockey, where you end up with 7-4 or 7-5 score lines, and then more than makes up for some of those low scoring games.
We're just about a week away from the NHL playoffs. How, as bettors, should we approach handicapping in the postseason with NHL?
Ties in the postseason, and I know people are thinking, how can you bet a tie in the postseason? There has to be a winner. A tie could, because of three-way betting, a tie is games that go to overtime. Your bet is a win. Obviously, regardless of the result in overtime, you're going to see totals that are completely different than where they are now, where we see 6.5s and we see 7s. Once the NHL playoffs begin, other than sort of the 1 versus 8 seedings, like Boston versus whoever finishes in that 8th spot, let's say it's Pittsburgh, where you could see some goals in them. The tighter contests, I think you tend to see games go to overtime. Toronto and Tampa is probably one of those, where I think they're going to be very tight games, 3-2 type games to go to overtime. So betting the under 6s or under 5.5s might not be a bad way to go. Again, with evenly matched teams, Minnesota is a great under team, and in that first round of the playoffs, if Colorado wins the Central, it'll be Dallas and Minnesota in the first round of the playoffs against each other, and that's another series that you can see a bunch of low-scoring games. Dallas last year against Calgary I think it was in the first round of the playoffs. The games were 2-1, 1-0, 3-1. There was just it is the matchups more than anything else. So I would stay away from the high-scoring teams, but the ones that play very good defense, which is why they're in the playoffs, are the best unders and tie results to get into. At 3-1, it's not a bad price if you can hit a tie for a game that gets to overtime.
Question coming in from the YouTube Live from Neil. Hi, Carmine. Alex Lyon for Florida has been a machine. Do you like over 28.5 saves at -110 against Washington tonight?
It is not a bad play. Washington are in the spoilers role right now, as far as they're eliminated from the playoffs. Florida, I think, needs to win out. So it's a game in which they're playing extremely well right now. Alex Lyon is playing extremely well right now since stepping in for Bobrovsky, and I'm looking just to see if Lyons is just to make sure that Lyons is confirmed for Florida. So bear with me for a second. He is confirmed against Charlie Lindgren. I would take it just because Washington at home tend to get a lot of shots on goal. If Florida gets into any type of any type of penalty trouble, the Washington power play can get 3 to 4 shots on goal at any time, especially as they try and feed Ovechkin in that face-off circle, his office there, basically. So I don't mind that. I think that Washington probably gets somewhere in that mid to low 30 range as far as shots on goal. Florida wins the game, so that over 28 and a half isn't a bad one.
Carmine, thank you very much for breaking down NHL with us here on a Saturday. You can go find Carmine at WagerTalk.com. He has an NHL package for playoffs up just $199, and you can also take Carm's 5% play he has up for tonight. We appreciate you joining us. Have a great weekend and have fun at the game tonight.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
We'll continue talking NBA, MLB, all the fun stuff, UFC, but this is your reminder and this is your chance to get some free picks out of our handicappers. Ask them any question you want. We have them, we're paying them. They got to give us some bets. So this is your chance to ask the questions you've been dying to know. Head over to the YouTube live chat right now as we bring on Tony Mejia. Break down some NBA. Might be difficult this time of year to get some correct handicapping with these crazy lines, but I know he is going to find a way to do it. Tony, you have been on a run. Your max plays 19, 8, and 1. Number one in wager talk since October of 2020, and overall 5% profits. How are you doing this Saturday morning?
I'm doing great, Megan. I know Carmine's going to have a good time because I was with McInnes in Orlando for the Tennessee Duke game a few weeks ago. So he's always a good time, and he ended up outlasting me and going to the Orlando City game because he wanted the ambiance. So I was like, all right, yeah, go to it. You can walk there, and he's always a great time. So obviously Carmine's going to have a fun evening ahead with McInnes on board.
Right. It's always a good time. And we're going to try to have some fun breaking down some NBA. We mentioned some of the promos that you have or some of the streaks that you have, but do you have anything up at WagerTalk.com for this weekend?
Not, and there will be no NBA picks today. I will absolutely have some baseball picks. Yesterday I had a 5% in the NBA that I put up early, and then Kyrie Irving sits. And I'm like, oh my goodness, no, that's not great because it was the over in the Bull in the Mavericks and Bulls game, and fortunately for me, it reached 227. It was over 226. I think by tip off, it was much lower because of the news. But everybody won, so another 5% winner for me. But yeah, that is it for me for the NBA this season. The penultimate night of the season tonight, and then everybody else plays that doesn't play tonight plays tomorrow. Yeah, we're going to get to 82 games, but there really isn't much mystery, like in terms of, even with the play-in, the teams that are slotted where they're slotted right now are locked in. They've won, regular season tiebreakers and whatnot. We're going to see the Lakers at the number 7 spot, so win one game and you're in, and you're at home. You're playing New Orleans. Minnesota's 40-40. Oklahoma City has now outlasted Dallas. They won the season series 2-1. So, the Mavericks can't do anything else. And I mean, I would assume that's why Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving are probably both done for the Mavericks. So, I mean, it is what it is, but at the same time, the fun is around the corner.
Yeah, let's not even get into the tanking conversation. We have the playoffs coming, so there will be some fun action here. A reminder, any MLB, NBA questions, Tony Mejia is here to answer them. Head over in the chat while we start breaking down a game that you mentioned, Minnesota. We have Timberwolves at the San Antonio Spurs. Wolves are minus 14. Tip off at 4:10 Eastern. Earlier slates of games tonight. Totals at 233. The Spurs actually have nothing to play for whatsoever. And though the Wolves are 40-40, probably not moving too much seeding wise, they technically could move. So there's a little bit more at stake for Minnesota. Spurs are 2-7 against the spread the last 9. Not really a spot for me to bet San Antonio, but what's your approach for this one?
Yeah, Megan, I think that at this point, all right. So if you're Minnesota, you want to conserve, especially since they had a flu go throughout, like a stomach flu or some sort of nonsense, really that was debilitating because they lost to Trailblazers of all teams as a 19.5-point favorite. But they had Anthony Edwards really not feeling well. Karl Anthony Towns coming off of his injury. Rudy Gobert. Mike Conley. So, like, all these guys really didn't feel well. And it basically cost them because they're going to be the number 9 seed. So that means that you play Oklahoma City at home, you win that game, and then you've got to lose of the Lakers Pelicans to try to get into the top 8 in the Western Conference. And certainly, I think if you're the Minnesota Timberwolves starting this season, and all systems go, you expect to be top 8. So this game doesn't matter. I would say blindly take every single team that's getting 1,000,000 points tonight, and hope that they show up, because this is the end of their season for the likes of the Spurs and the Trailblazers, teams that are basically done, and in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes. But the teams that are going to go ahead and move forward really are not invested in these results.
Yeah, Matt brought up a good point, and I know this doesn't help with tonight's slate, but getting in on the action, early morning, potentially like at that 2 a.m. slot before we see a huge jump in the line. So maybe that's something to consider when we wrap up the regular season tomorrow. Maybe some, action we can get later on this evening. Let's talk about another one with a wild line. We have the Portland Trailblazers at the LA Clippers. Tip off again, 4:10 Eastern. Clippers minus 16.5. Totals at 230. This is the final road game for Portland. They'll end the season at home tomorrow. Portland with absolutely nothing to play for. Again, similar situation. Clippers are in the 6th seed right now. They win the tiebreaker over the Lakers. Shouldn't move too much, but 16.5 still seems like a lot to lay with an LA team.
Well, Damian Lillard. All right. So I don't know if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, he had that monster game. And he said it's staying time, it's moving time. He was coming off an injury. He's like, hey, we're going to get it going right now. And that lasted all of 2 to 3 games, because then reality set in. And the fact is that most Western Conference teams had bypassed the Blazers. So you haven't seen Grant, Yusuf Nurkic, Anthony Simons. I mean, shoot, they're sitting trending Watford at this point. Like, it is tank city for the Portland Trailblazers. And yet, as I mentioned earlier, they beat the Minnesota Timberwolves the other night. They've been a cover machine. I promise you, Megan, that as much as I know about the NBA, and I know a ton, and I know the college game, I've got to look and be like, oh my God, that guy's on the Blazers now? Skylar Mays? like he's been out of the league for a while. He was with the Hawks. Now all of a sudden he's their starting point guard. I mean, they don't even have Keon Johnson. They don't have anybody that they brought up. They're basically playing G Leaguers, and they're being competitive. So obviously Chauncey Billups is the greatest coach of all time. I do not want to touch anything to do with this Clippers and Blazers game. And if I were to, I would take the points with the Portland Trailblazers.
Yeah, we've got some funny comments in the YouTube live. We'll get to a question here, but Jay Dez is saying, speaking of showing up, Portland's got 12 players on the injury report. Who's even playing for them tonight? As Tony said, it's all G Leaguers. So let's start. Ghosted wants to know about the Nuggets. Are the Nuggets another round 1 bounce? I don't think so. I think Nuggets are going to stick around for a sec. But Tony Mejia, you're the expert. What are your thoughts on Denver?
No, I mean, I think this is a different team that is going to take the court for Denver, because you have a Bruce Brown, you have a guy that is locked in on defense that has made a tremendous difference. You have Aaron Gordon on that side of the ball, so it's not a soft, pretty look at me team anymore. With your Jamal Murrays and Michael Porter Jr.'s and even Nikola Jokic. I mean, like, look, all those guys are fantastic offensive players, but nobody's going to write home about their defense. But now you've got some guys that really will get after you on that side of the ball. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in the starting lineup. So you've got Brown, you've got Caldwell-Pope, you've got Gordon, you've got guys that can really lock in on that defensive end, and that's going to be the key. And look, they're going to be the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. So the West is wide open. There's no question about that. I mean, I think you can sell me about 7 teams that can win that conference, and the Nuggets are one of them.
Well, it's crazy for as good of the season as the Nuggets have had. They're still the 5th longest odds to win the NBA championship. I love to talk futures at plus 950. Mejia, I'm sorry to make you do this again, but I need a reason to bet on something futures market, because that's where the value is. Should I be eyeing Denver plus 950?
I would eye Phoenix. And
Ooh.
it's because at this point, I mean, we've seen a handful of games with Kevin Durant on board. Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Chris Paul to finish a game, 3-point game, 3 minutes to go. Do you trust those guys to deliver a result? Hell yeah. And that's it. That is my rationale, basically. Because Sacramento, I mean, fantastic story. You can't trust them defensively. Memphis, still deficient unless Steven Adams comes back and comes back fluidly. I mean, really a team that's already lost Brandon Clark. He's not coming back. Steven Adams, they miss him. Jaren Jackson Jr., prone to foul trouble. You've got the Golden State Warriors. They're bringing in Andrew Wiggins back off a lengthy stay on the IR. Good thoughts to him for his father, and he obviously did what he needed to do. But God bless him. At the same time, he's got to get back indoctrinated. The Los Angeles Clippers, Paul George. I mean, same thing, coming back off an injury. So who is actually whole? The Phoenix Suns, and we'll see if Durant makes such a big difference that they're able to win all the rounds.
Yeah, I expect KD to be that big difference maker. We've seen it in just a handful of games. He brings such a unique offensive power to this Phoenix Suns team. Ghosted brings up a good point, though. Let's just hope Scott Foster isn't the ref for any of the Phoenix games. I don't know. We could have a whole separate show on officiating, but we won't do that here at Wager Talk's Last Call. All right, Tony Mejia, thank you very much for joining us this Saturday on Last Call to break down NBA. Mejia's got MLB action going on too. We're here breaking it all down. Mejia, you've been 19-8-1 on your max plays, number one at Wager Talk since October of 2020 and 5% profits. We appreciate your time here. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Thanks, Megan. Appreciate you.
We'll continue the NBA talk. Reminder, any last minute questions? We've got Moneyline Matt joining us. Going to talk some UFC. So anything that you want to get into, let's talk it. Moneyline Matt, thank you very much for joining us here on Saturday. You have been number one in NBA Moneyline best bets of 2023. You're number one in NBA the last 7 days. We're going to talk some UFC later, but tell us about a promo code that we can use to get into your NBA action.
Yeah, right now been running really hot. 10-3 on the week, up around 14 units. Just seeing the board very well. Definitely some advantages to to get right now, like you were saying earlier, taking the games a little bit earlier. And NBA 179 gets you every single play that I have from now throughout the entire NBA playoffs. The NBA playoffs are the best time to bet. You can bet on consistency, you bet on usage, you bet on volume, and that's when that is most secure. You look at this slate today, you're seeing 16.5-point spreads, you're seeing 14-point spreads. It's tough to get player props down when the spread is like that because you're unsure about minutes, you're unsure about volume. The playoffs, all that comes back around. I'm ready for it. I know everyone at SportsMemo and Wager Talk is ready for it, and just excited to get there.
Matt, you brought up a really good point off there that I want to touch into before we break down some of the games today. Getting in on the lines prior to the early morning, kind of that 1 a.m., 2 a.m. slot. So we have a lot of games on the slate for tomorrow as we wrap up the regular season. Any advice for tomorrow's slate of games before we look at today?
Well, one thing I will say is, last night there was definitely some, or not last night, Friday night, I should say, there were some spots that you could definitely take advantage of. That's why I try and tell a lot of people that subscribing is far better than just buying one single play or a day package or anything like that, because you get that email right when my play is released. And I'm one of those cappers. Well, I'll be honest, I'm up at 1 a.m. I'm up at 2 a.m. I'm searching for the best lines possible. And the other night, we saw the Golden State Warriors win in Sacramento. I got the Warriors at -5.5. That closed at -11. With the Los Angeles Lakers, I got the Lakers at -6.5. That closed around 12.5, 13. So if you've been paying attention to the NBA throughout the season and coaching consistencies, the standings that are going on at that point in time, a lot of these teams towards the end of the season, if there's no reason to run your number one guys or number two guys, then these coaches are not going to. And, one example today, and this is what I'm a little on the fence on, is the Denver Nuggets, because Denver Nuggets have the number 1 seed completely locked up. They have that tiebreaker over the Memphis Grizzlies. So there's really no reason for them to run these guys. And currently it's a 6.5 point spread, 6-point spread, depending on the sports book. And when I put these two teams together in terms of their third team unit going against the Jazz and their second team and third team unit, I actually think the Jazz can hang close. But that's not one I'm as secure on as maybe the Warriors or the Lakers, because I like to check boxes. And with the Warriors and the Lakers as well, both of them needed to win those games for the play-in tournament, for playoff seeding, stuff like that. So that's why I went with those as well. So I always like to check boxes along the way. And all of those meant I got about 5 points of closing line value for every team last night. It was pretty nice.
Yeah, and the line movement has been insane. We saw -5 jump to -11. So if you can get in it when it's still in a single digit, I mean, I
Yeah.
guess that is absolutely something to celebrate. Let's talk about this Nuggets team, though. We have Denver Nuggets at Utah Jazz, tip off 3:40 Eastern. Nuggets -6, -6.5, depending on the book. Totals at 225.5. Okay, look, so again, this is going to be essentially pickup style basketball. Nuggets locked in, Jazz have nothing to
Mhm.
play for, but the Jazz have covered in over 73% of their games this season. This makes me lean Utah a little bit because we're not going to be seeing a lot of starters out there. What is your approach, if any, for this one?
No, I'd 100% be with you, Megan. Honestly, when you look at these two teams, one thing with the Utah Jazz, this lineup has actually been playing together for an extended period of time. Chris Dunn running that point guard position. He is a veteran throughout the NBA, been playing for a good amount of time. Very experienced. He plays solid defense as well. A guy that I like a lot is Ochai Agbaji. He's a rookie for the Utah Jazz. He was drafted out of Kansas, a 6'5" shooting guard. Very talented player, very aggressive. He's already got the body of an NBA player on top of that, so I like his defensive ability. And as you know, I like taking players when they're coming off a bad game. And Agbaji had one of his kind of worse off games last outing. He had 13 points and he shot 0 for 8 from 3. And that's typically not something that you'll see from him, shooting 0 for 8 from 3. He is a rookie, so he's going to have those days. But I definitely like the bounce back in this spot. And then Simone Fontecchio as well. That's a mouthful. But he is a small forward for the Utah Jazz. He's a solid outside shooter. And even I can't say Udoka Azubuike. Yeah, that's what it is. Udoka Azubuike. He's the center for them as well. He's coming off a nice game on top of that. And when you look at the Denver Nuggets here, they'll potentially be running guys like Reggie Jackson. And we all know how Reggie Jackson, the floor and ceiling, the floor is just absolutely nothing. So he can go out and do just nothing for this team. Christian Braun has been playing pretty solid. I do like him. Bruce Brown maybe will suit up. I wouldn't even run him if I was the Nuggets, honestly. So for me, just like you said, I like the look of the Jazz here. I think 6.5 is a good amount of points for two teams who on paper are going to be pretty similar. And I would actually give the Jazz more scoring power.
Yeah, and player props is a good angle here, Matt, for some of the lines that are a little bit skewed. I like where you're headed. We're going to switch to UFC, but this is just a reminder to our YouTube watchers right now. Any NBA questions, Matt's still here. Throw them out. We're going to talk UFC, though. So he's here to answer your questions on that. Let's look at UFC 287, Pereira versus Adesanya. Adesanya, slight money line favorite. I know you're mentioning a live betting angle. How do we approach this?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is a really exciting card. 287 is absolutely stacked. And even for the average UFC fan, you're going to see a lot of names that you're probably going to want to bet on and things like that. But the main one that everyone is looking to is Adesanya versus Pereira. And one thing that I want to say is if you're looking to bet Alex Pereira, I mean, as long as it's not a parlay, if you're looking to single bet something like that, I would actually wait because the way that these two fighters are, Israel Adesanya is the cleaner striker. He's the more technical. He's gonna hit you. He's gonna move. He's gonna circle you. Things like that. When Alex Pereira, on the other hand, is the knockout artist, and with this being a 5-round fight, there's a very good chance Adesanya could come out, get that first round, get that second round, and then you're getting Alex Pereira at way better value with that live betting because the 2 rounds are already beneath him. He's already down 2 rounds, so it's going to be that much harder for him to win. But regardless, the guy's a knockout artist, so it really doesn't matter. You look at guys like the Leon Edwards and the Kamaru Usman. It was the same thing in that fight. I know in this bout, Leon Edwards did not knock him out, But going into the third round, Usman was still the favorite there. You had a great live betting opportunity on Leon Edwards. And I don't know how everyone else felt, but when I was watching that fight, I felt great about Leon every single round. So when I saw that third round and he was still the underdog, I felt like that was a great opportunity to get some more money and get some great value. And I think the same thing can happen tonight. I'll be honest with this fight in particular, I don't have a great feel for it right now. I'm on some other plays. I actually do have a 4-fight UFC package. But there's definitely some other ways that you can attack this. And I think live betting is definitely one of them.
All right, I love an odds boosted because I'm all about plus money, and there's one right now that I got to ask you about. Adesanya to win by knockout or points versus Pereira. It was at minus 130. It's been boosted to plus 120. Something I should be looking at?
You said Adesanya points and Pereira knockout? Was that what that is?
Yeah, to win by knockout or on points versus Pereira.
Oh, I love that bet. Because I believe, I don't know if it was this show or Prop It Up. I was on another show last week, and all these shows blending together now. And I talked
Right?
about Cheeto Vera and Corey Sandhagen, and it was the same exact bet. Corey Sandhagen points, Cheeto Vera by knockout. And it's very similar stylistically. Corey Sandhagen is that guy who's very good on his feet. He's going to stick you. He's going to move. He's going to keep circling so you can't touch him. And then Cheeto Vera is kind of he takes his time. Cheeto is notoriously a slower style fighter, and Pereira can do the same thing here because they're gauging it. They're trying to pick their spots. So if there is a path to each fighter's outcome, I would say it would be that Izzy points or Pereira KO TKO. I think that's a great bet. That's something I'll probably be on as well because with the UFC in particular, fighters have their most common outcome. And for Izzy, as we know, it is points. I know Izzy's coming in with the dog collar and all this stuff. A little much for me, but I think it's still going to be a point. I'm still going to take him to the decision. And if Pereira does get Izzy again, I think it's going to be knockout. It's not going to be a decision or a submission.
All right, we have Vegas in the chat right now. Masvidal, is that how you say that? Masvidal?
Masvidal.
Masvidal. All right, I'm new to this. All right, has been telling me to take him at plus 300 money line spot. Should I listen to him? Is he sponsored by a book or something?
Honestly, well, for one, Megan, the UFC is tough to say names. I am notoriously known for butchering UFC names. But Vegas Degen, hell no. I would never take Jorge Masvidal. Jorge Masvidal is. If there's more Jorge Masvidal fans watching right now, I apologize, but I think Masvidal is an absolute bum. He's a glorified journeyman. He went on his little Ben Askren knockout. He knocked out Darren Till. He got his big name, and it was great. He did the backyard brawling, stuff like that. I mean, you love it. It's exciting. He's a guy who wants to come in and knock you out. But once you get to the upper echelon of fighters like a Gilbert Burns, there is no chance that I would be taking a Jorge Masvidal. Those Usman fights, I didn't really think he deserved either of those fights. That was kind of just a walk in the park for Kamara. And, Jorge's already talking about retirement. He's even saying that after this fight, he might go off into the sunset, just fade away. So why in the world would I bet him if you're talking about retirement, if that's already in your mind? I think he's plus 300 for a reason. If you want a plus 300 play, I would actually look at Gilbert submission. That's plus 240. It's in the same neighborhood because I just can't see him doing this. I really can't. I love Gilbert today, and I do not think Jorge is honestly that talented of a fighter. I do think he's more prone for matchups like maybe someone with Nate Diaz or maybe a Tony Ferguson, someone like that. Keep those big names together. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be a brawl. But when you face a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Olympic gold medalist like Gilbert Burns, good luck, buddy. There's no chance my money's going to be on you.
All right, I love your mindset here, Matt, breaking down everything in UFC. Do you have anything up at WagerTalk.com for those that are looking to get in on the action this weekend for UFC, that is?
Yeah, I do have a 4-pick package up for the UFC right now. Like I was saying, not on the main event, but I have 4 spots that I really do enjoy. They're all on the main card. This main card is stacked. You got guys like Kevin Holland. Everyone likes watching Kevin Holland. Rob Font and Yanez. That's going to be a great fight as well. There's just a lot of spots that I think even for the casual fan, it's going to be a very exciting fight card. And today doesn't have any great NBA or anything along those lines. So I think a lot of people are going to be tuning into this fight card. And yeah, I got a 4-fight package, feeling really good about it. Been running very hot this week and just looking to keep it rolling.
Matt, we appreciate you breaking down everything in the UFC. But don't forget that NBA regular season is wrapping up, and you can go get Moneyline Matt's plays for the NBA. Use code NBA179 for the remainder of the NBA season. He'll get all of his plays. He's been number one in NBA money lines in 2023, number one in NBA the last 7 days. You're good at your stuff, Matt. We appreciate you joining us here at Last Call. Have a great weekend, and we'll catch you here next time.
Thanks, Megan. Happy Saturday, everyone.
Happy Saturday. Lots around the world of sports. We have Masters, MLB, NBA. We're going to talk MLB. We didn't get to too much of that last call. And this is your reminder, too, if there's anything that you guys ever want us to focus on, this is about the YouTube live comments. Head over there. We're open to all suggestions. We appreciate you spending your Saturday morning with us. We'll catch you here Thursdays at 3 p.m. Pacific and Saturdays at 11 a.m. Eastern. Have a great Saturday. We'll catch you here next time.
The NBA playoffs start the second week of April, with the NHL playoffs scheduled to begin immediately after. Whether you're looking to raise the Stanley Cup or lift the Larry O'Brien Trophy, we've got the deal for you. Postseason subscriptions are already a great deal at $219, but with this early bird special, we're slashing it even more to just $177 each, and you get the rest of the regular season for free. Between now and Sunday, April 9th, partner with your favorite NBA or NHL handicapper and get their NHL or NBA best bets all the way through the finals. No coupon is needed. Head to the homepage of your favorite WagerTalk or SportsMemo expert and finish the NBA and NHL postseason with a bang.